Etta James possessed singing talent that allowed her to be respected in several different genres of music. Depending on who you asked or what time in her career you were talking about, some people would call her an R&B singer. Still others would call her a jazz singer. Yet another segment of people felt that her music had elements of country or rock in it. Whatever category people wanted to put her in, there's no questioning that Etta was one of the most compelling voices in music history. Meanwhile, her life offstage was full of drama, with a penchant for choosing bad men, along with her decades-long substance abuse issues that ensured that heartache and pain was always right around the corner. With a life that needs to be heard to be believed, check out this video to find out about all the twists and turns of Etta James's life. Etta was born Jamesetta Hawkins on January 25, 1938, to Dorothy, who was only 14 years old. We can't tell you Etta's father's name because even Etta never knew who her father really was. Her mother first told Etta that her father's name was Theodore. Then she said his name was Al Anderson. Then she said his name was Minnesota Fats. Who knew which, if any of those, was the truth? Etta's name was formed from her aunt Cozetta's husband's name, which was James, and Cozetta herself, which is where the Etta came from. Etta's mother, Dorothy, was an unusual woman. At one point, she told Etta that in one of her former lives, Dorothy had been a queen who was white and had red hair. She also told Etta that she used to be powerful and that she had actually ended some people's lives. In real life, though, Dorothy had grown up in an orphanage as her mother was unable to care for her. Her mother had died when Dorothy was only 10. After that happened, Dorothy ran away from the orphanage, which was located in Omaha, Nebraska, and went all the way out to Los Angeles, California to find her sister Cozetta. Dorothy was tall, and she liked the color black, which she topped off with bleached hair and fire engine red lipstick. She also liked to wear short skirts, fishnet pantyhose, and platform shoes. When it came to who Etta's father was, there was instant drama about that. Dorothy eventually said, legally, that it was Al Anderson. The authorities believed Dorothy, and as a result, they put Al's name on Etta's birth certificate. After they did that, they came and they threw Al in jail. Why'd they do that? Because, as we said earlier, Dorothy was only 14 years old when Etta was born, and Anderson was a grown man. Meanwhile, at the same time they put Al in jail, they put Dorothy in reform school. With Dorothy in reform school, somebody had to take care of Etta. To that end, even though Etta was named after her, Cozetta didn't want to become her legal guardian because Cozetta ran a whole house and she was a madam. And bringing in some kid, that would hurt her business. Along with that, though, she didn't even like her own sister, and she thought that she was just dumb and lazy. However, Cozetta's husband talked her into taking Etta in. As a result, they took Etta to Sacramento, California. While Cozetta kept on hoeing, her husband James was a tailor, and he was taking advantage of her clientele by making zoot suits for pimps. When Etta was only 6 months old, Dorothy got out of reform school. Meanwhile, Al Anderson was still sitting in jail waiting for his trial. Once the trial got started, the judge took a look at two things. Etta had a very light complexion, and she had blonde hair. Meanwhile, Al was a very dark-skinned man. Case dismissed, the judge decreed. And just like that, the case was over. Meanwhile, Dorothy didn't want any part of having to raise Etta. She wanted to chase her dreams, either becoming a dancer or, what about being a movie star? While she figured out her next move, she and Etta rented a room above a dry cleaner's. Where they lived was owned by a married couple, Jesse and Lula Rogers. Lula was 20 years older than Jesse, and the couple had no children of their own. That right there was the opening that Dorothy was looking for. She asked Lula if she'd mind taking care of Etta, and Lula was more than happy to do it. Before you know it, Etta was calling Lula Mama. That's because Lula basically became her mother, as Dorothy was always gone off someplace else. Etta would say that even though Lula wasn't her natural mother, she was her sure enough mama. And Lula would always reassure Etta that Dorothy was her real mother and that she loved Etta very much. Meanwhile, Etta's aunt Cozetta told Etta that craziness ran in their family. Cozetta, who was nicknamed Cozy, told her that her Uncle Robert had died in an asylum, as had Dorothy's father. This made Etta wonder whether craziness was in her blood too. Though Etta didn't see her mother often, when she did, Dorothy was full of all kinds of fears. The main one that concerned her was about children being messed with by adults. Aunt Cozy one day told Etta that when Dorothy was a child, bad people had messed with her. And as a result, she was always warning Etta, don't go near him, or don't go near her, or don't go near anyone. It was almost as though she saw herself in Etta. Growing up, Etta was a good athlete, and she was good at both tetherball and volleyball. She also liked to dance and roller skate and to race on bicycles. Unfortunately for her, just when things were going good in her life, whether it had been a few months or sometimes as long as a year in between visits, Dorothy would show up and ruin everything. We're going to take a time out from our story to ask you to like, subscribe, share, comment, hit that notification bell, and repeat when it comes to our videos. Now, back to our story. She dragged Etta to some other part of town to stay with her in some dingy room that she had rented or where she lived at the time. Dorothy would often leave Etta alone with nothing to do once she got her there. And also, there was no radio to listen to and there was no food to eat. One of those times, desperate to get some food, Etta had searched the drawers and everywhere in the house and had come up with 50 cents. Just as she was about to leave to get something to eat, Dorothy came home. When she saw Etta with that money, she took it back saying, quote, "That's my cigarette change," unquote. Every night, Dorothy would get dressed to go run them streets. Of course, Etta wouldn't want her to leave and would start to throw a tantrum. Inevitably, after Etta fell asleep, her mother would sneak out. Getting wise to this, Etta began tying a string around a big ring that Dorothy used to wear. Etta would hold the other end of the string in her hand, and her idea was that if her mother tried to leave, Etta would feel the movement and wake up. It didn't work though, because in the morning, the string would be on the floor and Dorothy would be gone, leaving Etta alone once again. Sometimes, Etta was rescued from her mother's prison when Mama Lou would find out where she was and came and got her. During one of these instances, Dorothy showed up as Mama Lou was taking Etta home. "I don't want to go with Dorothy no more," Etta yelled, calling her mother by her name. "I don't like Dorothy. I hate Dorothy. Go ahead and take her." "That girl's more trouble than she's worth," Dorothy retorted. When Etta was 5, she started attending church at the St. Paul Baptist Church. There she would meet Professor James Earl Hines, who Etta would credit as her first musical mentor. She also credited him with teaching her how to sing. Whenever she heard the choir at church, Etta would begin to hum along. Even though she liked the women in the choir, she told Mama Lou that she wanted to sing like Professor Hines. It didn't matter to her that he was a man. Etta had no interest in wanting to sound like the women, as she felt that a man was the one who sang with the force and the power that brought down the sky and shook the earth. As a result, Mama Lou took Etta to see the professor, and she sang for him. What was his response? He told Mama Lou, "Ma'am, this little thing can sing." After that, every Tuesday, Mama Lou would take Etta to see Professor Hines for voice lessons. Additionally, Etta took piano lessons from the professor's wife. In short order, Etta began singing in church. Songs like "Didn't It Rain," or "Move Up a Little Higher," or "Just a Closer Walk with Thee," or "Precious Lord," had the congregation urging her on. Soon word got out around town that there was this little girl at the St. Paul Church who could sing like a full-grown woman. However, Etta's mother never came to see her perform, even once. Along with that, despite the fact that his wife Mama Lou was in church with Etta every Sunday, her husband never came to see Etta sing either. Having said that, that didn't stop him from trying to use Etta's talent to his advantage. When Jesse was playing poker and drinking late into the night with his friends, Sarge, as he was called, would brag to his friends about how good his little girl could sing. To prove to them how good she was, he'd go and wake Etta up in the middle of the night. Etta was a bedwetter, wouldn't want to get up. This made Sarge decide to get his razor strap and beat Etta with it until she decided to comply. The more fame Etta got for singing at church, the more Sarge became involved. He even started going to church, which Mama Lou thought was a miracle. However, Sarge had motivations besides the gospel for being there. Seeing how Etta was drawing people to the church with her singing, Sarge figured there must be a monetary figure to go with that draw. He really believed this after Etta sang at numerous fundraising concerts for the church. When that happened, Sarge became the manager that Etta never asked for. He began telling the church when and where Etta would sing. Eventually, the church invited Sarge to take Etta and go somewhere else, which is exactly what happened. And Etta was heartbroken. She really loved going to that church. In short order, Sarge found a new church to go to, and he was excited about this because the congregation at this new church was richer, and that would need more money for him. Etta. However, Etta just didn't feel it anymore, and she didn't want to sing in church because her heart wasn't in it. Meanwhile, Etta was growing to be an overweight little girl. Later on in her life, people, including personal friends as well as mental health professionals, would speculate as to why that was. Some of them said that girls who didn't want to be messed with sexually got fat to keep people away. It was as though the fat was a layer of armor that kept them safe. However, there's one reason why Etta was chubby. Every night, after she'd already had dinner, and before bedtime, she'd insist that Mama Lou make her 2 eggs sunny side up with toast. Sadly, Etta would lose her only anchor to a normal life when she was only 12, when Mama Lou suffered the last in a series of strokes. After Mama Lou's funeral, Dorothy took her straight from the funeral to the bus station. She wouldn't even let Etta go back to the house to get her things. "Where are we going?" Etta asked. "I'm taking you to San Francisco," her mother replied. Falling asleep on the trip from Los Angeles to San Francisco, Etta was awakened by some sort of fight. When she opened her eyes, she saw her mother arguing with the bus driver. Her mother was cursing him out. Apparently, Dorothy had bought tickets only as far as Fresno and had no money to get all the way to San Francisco. As a result, she and Etta were being kicked off the bus. It would be hours before Uncle Frank arrived to pick them up and drive them to San Francisco. In true Dorothy form, she got dropped off in the Fillmore district of San Francisco, while Etta went to stay with Uncle Frank and his wife Mary. They lived in the Channel Projects in a small one-bedroom apartment. That meant that Etta would have to sleep on the couch. While Frank was glad that Etta was there, his wife, she didn't like it so much. However, she did teach Etta how to cook, which Etta liked. Additionally, Etta just didn't want to get kicked out. As a result, even though she didn't like Mary, she made sure to stay on her good side. Thank you all for checking out our video. We appreciate you spending time with us. We're ending part 1 here. See you over at the part 2 video.